Howdy, I'm Karen with Karen Dawn Designs, and today I'm going to talk to you about Lucy's Modified Conventional Bind Off. If you're anything like me, you've struggled with binding off and having your bind offs be way too tight. So this is the bind off that I've found that works the best for me. So give it a try and see if it's the bind off for you. Let's go ahead and get started. To get started, let's do a quick review of the conventional bind off. So the conventional bind off tells you to knit 2 stitches, then using your left needle, grab that first stitch and pass it over that second stitch, and continue, knit 1 more stitch and then do the same thing. And you'll see what you do is you basically create this row of stitches that goes across the top of your knitting. The problem is the row height versus the stitch width. So if your row height is shorter than your stitch width, then you're going to end up with a bind off that is too tight. So the Lucy's Modified Conventional Bind Off helps to make this loop a bit bigger, making your row height match with your stitch width. So let me show you how that works. For Lucy's Modified Conventional Bind Off, you start by knitting 1 stitch. Then you use your left needle and you insert it into that stitch you just knit. Then you're going to make sure both needles stay within that stitch and just move that right needle so it is in front of the left needle. Then you're going to use your needle to knit the next stitch on the needle. Wrap your yarn, and when you pull that stitch through, make sure that you come in between those 2 loops that are on your left needle. And then you can move both of them off. And now you've bound off 1 stitch. And if you notice, here's that same loop that we saw. It's much bigger now, and it is making your row height and your stitch width match up more closely, so that way your bind off won't be too tight. So let me show you again. So you've got this 1 stitch on the needle already. So take your left needle, insert it into that stitch, keep both needles through the stitch and just rotate so your right needle is in the front, and then go ahead and knit the next stitch, and make sure when you pull the needle through you go in between those 2 and pull those both off the left needle. Again, see that big loop. Just continue, insert, rotate, knit, pull loop through the middle. And just keep going like that until you get to the end of your row. Now we've come to the last stitch on the left needle. Do the same exact thing you've been doing across the entire row. And now you have that 1 stitch there, and you just break your yarn and then pull that yarn all the way through. Give it a little bit of a tug, and then you weave in that end, and that will help that little loop at the end not be so prominent. And if you notice, my bind off and my cast on are stretching at the same rate. That usually doesn't happen for me when I do the regular conventional bind off. So this one makes your bind off not too tight and not too loose. And that is Lucy's Modified Conventional Bind Off. I hope you found that video tutorial helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I am Karen Dawn on Ravelry and Karen Dawn Knits on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks, and happy knitting!